And we're recording. I think you just heard that. Yeah, we've had a lot of requests to record Writers' Night Out. So we're finally remembering to do it tonight. All right, Beth, why don't we go ahead and start?
That sounds really good. And before I turn this over to our host and MC, Jacqueline Sheehan is our host, Rick Parr is our MC. Just want to mention that we lost a member of Straw Dog Writers Guild in February, Dick Bentley. And some of you may know Dick, some of you may have heard about Dick. Some you may have just crossed paths, but just wanted to say something about Dick. Jacqueline, you had a story that's kind of the essence of Dick about something he proposed that actually came to be. Do you want to share it?
Sure. So I do have a little story about Dick, but I have to say, you know, he was pretty inspiring. Dick had a stroke a few years ago, and he would still come to Writers' Night Out. He'd had a brace on his leg, a crutch, a cane, a this, a that, and he'd still make it into the basement, which was nearly inaccessible, you know, on a good day. But Dick would make it. But what I remember most about Dick is that he could complain really a lot. It would sound like he was complaining a lot. And about 5 years ago or so, he complained to everybody in Straw Dogs, why don't you get a showcase and showcase all the authors, all the Straw Dog authors? And he never thought we were going to do it. He thought it was just another thing he was tossing out. He was so surprised when we took his suggestion, and now we have an annual showcase. And it's really thanks to Dick and his cranky complaint.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And I just want to say that Dick was one of the first people I met, along with Richard Horton and Grant, Jacqueline, for Straw Dog Writers Guild, Straw Dog Writers Night Out at the 11s. That was when it was probably about 10 years ago at this point. Yeah. And Dick was the kind of person who assessed you immediately as to your entertainment value for him. And if you were found wanting, he would just, anyways, he was just a real wit, the truest essence of that term. But Dick was also incredibly gracious, incredibly warm. He was the first to tell you whether he liked or didn't like something that you read. And I guess the thing that Jacqueline mentioned too about Dick was that he really had this funny way of throwing out all kinds of ideas and then assigning you responsibilities to carry out his ideas. And I think that he was known for that, and that we loved him for it, and we loved him for his wit, and we loved him for his warmth. So just goodbye to Dick, and I know he's still here with us in spirit.
And Beth, do you want to give us any other instructions about?
No, just so you know, you're being recorded. We will put this up on our YouTube channel. I think the best thing to tell you in terms of direction is, after a couple days, just Google YouTube Writers' Night Out, and you should be able to find it that way. Maybe we'll be able to get something onto the website, but it will be on our YouTube channel. We want you to be here any way that you're comfortable. So keep your video on, but if you need to turn it off, that's fine too. Keep yourselves muted in the background if you're not commenting or reading. Please use the reaction buttons at the bottom of your screen. Also, we love it when there are comments after each person's or during each person's reading, what you're thinking about, what stood out for you, what got you, what you loved about it. I save the chats and then I email them out to everybody. And it's kind of nice after you're reading to get some feedback from the community through the chat. So make ample use of that. Start your chat with the name of the writer so that it doesn't get lost in who is this chatted comment intended for. So I think that's it. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick now, because he's going to tell you the other rules.
Nope. Turn it over to me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. All right. Thanks, Beth. And welcome everybody to Writers Night Out. And so our open mic comes first. I think we have 7 or 8 readers tonight. And following that is our featured reader, it's Lynne Bertrand. And I'm so looking forward to hearing from Lynne. See, they're already clapping, Lynne. All right. Rick, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Madeline.
Okay.
Me.
Whoa.
Yeah. Found a little something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who?
Jess.
I thought you said yes. Okay.
Richard.
Yep.
Ed.
Yep.
Finn.
Yep.
Stephanie. All right.
Hey, one thing about Dick Bentley. If you close your eyes, you can hear his voice. Wasn't it a very distinctive voice? I said, yeah, I got it. Okay. I liked him.
Could I just add something, Rick, before?
Yeah, please.
I got to know Dick by chairing the Zoom group at the Senior Center in Northampton.
Yeah.
And cranky is a good word for him. Irascible, very talented, but also a very gracious person, and an excellent writer, a poet that I didn't realize. And he also knew, I think he knew personally, F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I'll miss him.
That's going back a ways. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay. So you get 5 minutes. Wait a minute. I have a ding thing here. Forgot to bring it over. So about 4.5 minutes, you get this. I hope you can hear it because there were problems with that before. And at 5 minutes, you go. At 6 minutes, I jump through the screen and strangle you. Like that. So that's it. Okay. So have fun. Madeline, first up.
All right. So some of you know I'm writing a memoir about my relationship with my aunt, and I didn't know her except through letters she wrote from prison in Nazi Germany. And this piece I'm going to read is a piece that actually I started writing in a bereavement writing group with Becky Jones. And I want to say thank you to Becky, because that's what really got me started. And I'm just sorry she's not here for that tonight. Maybe she'll look at the recording. Anyways, so all you need to know for this piece is that my mother and her sister Helga had been resistance fighters in Nazi Germany. They got caught. Her sister ended up in prison. My mother got off and escaped, and her sister did not and was murdered in a concentration camp. And this piece is called The Waterline. As I look down into the still surface of the lake water, almost black, it reflects back the world above, bright clouds, blue sky, and my face. A world so different from what is below, away from the fresh air and oxygen, away from the breathing life. If I look closely, will I see Mom there below the water surface, inhabiting a world I cannot cross into? Can she see me across the barrier? Is Helga there with her? I imagine the two of them in their dark, dead world, meeting up after 71 years of being apart. One dead in 1942 and the other in 2013. They have so much to fill in for each other. Helga telling Mom about her prison life, the life between the lines of her letters, what she couldn't write then or was afraid of writing. But she's now free to tell the truth. Tell the whole story, fill in the blanks for Mom, although I'm sure Mom still won't want to hear about her suffering at the end, even if it's so long past. I expect Mom will be giving Helga a full account of her life post-Germany, the trip to Shanghai, how they survived there, then coming to America, meeting her half-sister and how life unfolded here. I can just see her proudly telling Helga all about me and my accomplishments, about the wonderful vacations we took together and our various fun escapades. Everything from moving me to Indiana to the two of us carrying my secretary desk up the narrow circular staircase to my apartment in Dunellen, New Jersey. I can almost hear her recounting the story of our miniature golf encounter in Germany, with the German players behind us making nasty cracks about our golfing skills, assuming we couldn't understand them. And then my mother turning to them after we finished the last hole, giving them a big smile and commenting in German on the beautiful weather, just so they would know we had understood every word of theirs. Would she admit the disappointment of her marriage to my father or disclose her affair with Peter? Would she tell her sister about her breast cancer or the last months of her life when she was feeling so ready to die? Would she feel constrained by guilt about the life she had had and Helga didn't? Would she even reveal to Helga that she felt guilty, that she had gotten off when Helga was convicted and that she'd managed to escape, leaving Helga behind? I don't imagine Helga being bitter or angry that Mom made it to safety. I can only presume she was happy that her sister managed to have a life, and such a great one at that. I visualize the two of them having fun, romping around in their underwater world together, enjoying each other again as sisters, making up for all those years they were apart. I see them picking right up where they left off, no longer burdened by real life, earthly life, that life above the waterline. Yet they probably are trying to poke their fingers through that interface, knowing that it's not allowed. Why would they pay attention to the rules now? I will look for those fingers. I hope to see them, a sign that they are both as feisty as ever.
Yeah. Hey, wonderful. That's the water as the image in the beginning just really captured me. And it was both joyous and heart-wrenchingly sad too, at the same time. Wow. So this is going to be well, obviously part of the memoir, right? Yes. How far along are you?
Oh, well, I just went through a major revamp and did a 117-page submission to the Gray Wolf Nonfiction Prize. At least that deadline got me really revamping it. So
Work
I
to
may
the
be
deadline.
halfway
Yeah.
done.
Well, God, all good luck. Way to go. Thank you.
Hmm.
Surprisingly enough, for the first time in maybe a year and a half, you've written, no, it's been a while since you've read here. Jacqueline.
Okay. It hasn't been that long, but thank you. So this is a really short piece from a book that I'm working on, book of fiction. Just writing so slowly. Two characters, Natalie and Keith, they're both 20. Both are employed by a private contractor locating human traffickers. Neither have living parents. We had just finished Keith's third archery lesson and had locked up warehouse number 2. Keith rubbed his left forearm where the bowstring had snapped on his bare skin. "That's going to bruise," I said as we stepped into the night. He zipped up his coat and said, "I'll add it to my bruise collection." I cringed that Keith didn't have the same reaction to pain. He just accepted it. The night brought a wave of cool air and I stuffed my hands into the pockets of my puffy coat. As I looked down, I saw the smallest movement on the path, what at first looked like a leaf rolled up tight. Or was it a mouse? Keith saw it too and knelt down. "Oh no," he said, "it's a bat, a young bat. He should still be with his mother. This isn't good. I knelt beside him. The bat was as small as a pea pod, except not as long. The security light from the warehouse illuminated the bat in a stark outline. He lay on his side, one wing spasmed in micro movements. Keith cupped one hand and slid it under the brown creature. Wait, I said, it might have rabies. What are you doing? Was Keith so unarmed in the world that he would pick up a rabid animal? Well, it's not any more likely to have rabies than a raccoon or a skunk, he said. This guy has been on his own, and that means something has happened to the mother. He stood up with the little creature in the sling of his palm. I peered over his shoulder, still expecting a vampirish attack. If Keith had underdeveloped self-preservation, I more than made up for that. The bat did have adorable, oversized ears and a pug nose, little tiny legs, and soft opal eyes that looked up at Keith for 1 second. The bat trembled and went still. We were so close, our heads almost touching, witnessing the death of a bat. Placing his pointer finger over where a bat heart might be, he said, "He's gone." He looked right at me and died. I ran one finger over the wing and was shocked by the supple silk that stretched like an umbrella between the struts. "I've never seen anything die before," I said. Keith didn't respond with a me either. He just ran his finger over the bat with soft touches. "I think we should bury him," I said. My face was still close to his, and if the bat were alive, we would have looked like two mountains of humanity staring down at it. Keith turned his face away and wiped at his cheeks with a knuckled finger. "Okay," he said, clearing his throat. After getting a large spoon from my apartment, we found a spot on the edge of the property and we dug a hole. The soil in Iowa is dark and rich, easy to dig in. We wrapped the bat in a Melita coffee filter and tucked him into his grave, all 6 inches of it. To keep predators from scavenging, we piled a few rocks on it. Walking back, Keith said, he would have grown up to eat millions of mosquitoes. He was probably hibernating with his mother, and this was his first flight out. Mother bats actually carry their young. They only give birth to one baby, and the pup stays with her until it's fully grown. She's the best mother. It went without saying that both of us wanted a mother like that. If we'd had bat mothers, life would have been so much better. Thank you.
Loved it. So this is the most recent book you're writing, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And you said it was about trafficking and all that.
Mhm. Yep.
I found a kind of a connection between this bat, absent the mother, on its own and dying and suffering, and nice, liked it.
Thank
Way
you.
to go.
Right.
All right. Jess Sokol. Go get him, Jess.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is a piece that I submitted to the Forbes Library virtual 2022 exhibit called Home, and was selected, and the link went live today. So I also think that Ed, I think I saw your name on it as well. So I'll share that link after I read the piece that I submitted that was selected. And it's titled The Record Collection. I'm sitting in my parents' basement with my Girl Scout troop of 12 young women. We're in 6th grade and it's May 1996. My mom is one of the Girl Scout leaders and the official cookie mom. My father's vinyl collection surrounds us with this beautiful musty smell. More than 20,000 records adorn the basement, ceiling to floor, and there's vibrancy down here. The records are alphabetized and the colors of their spines pop. From the Kinks to Bob Dylan, from Stevie Wonder to the Beatles, from Tom Waits to Janis Joplin. My family has dance parties here, and this has long been a happy place for me. I often challenge my dad to find a certain record in his collection, and he guarantees he can find any album in less than 2 minutes. But this evening, there's a Girl Scout meeting in the basement, and we're discussing new badges and Thin Mints while gossiping about boys and giggling. Suddenly, my dad interrupts the meeting and pulls my mom aside. I can sense this is not a record-finding mission. She comes back upset and crying. We learn that my mother's father, my papa, has just suffered a fatal heart attack. My dad heard the message from my Nana over our answering machine. I'm in complete shock. The basement suddenly feels totally different with my mom utterly devastated. I spent summers with Nana and Papa at their home in Saratoga Springs, New York. During these visits, Papa tossed me into their pool, taught me how to dive, and we played gin rummy at night in their living room. Andy's chocolate mints and Werther's original candies adorned the crystal dish on their coffee table, and we often laughed uncontrollably about nothing in particular. What is my Nana going to do? I have a hard time picturing what her home will feel like now. Just 3 weeks after Papa's funeral, another call comes. My best girlfriend, Ashley, another Girl Scout, has just returned home with her mom after a weekend away. Ashley's mother leaves a distraught message on my parents' answering machine, just as Nana had done. Ashley's dad was found on the floor, not breathing, a bottle by his side. At Papa's funeral, Ashley had told me how Papa was like a father figure to her. Now her real father is gone too. When I get to Ashley's home, she is bawling uncontrollably. Her father is still there, motionless, in the tidy living room where Ashley and I spent so much time practicing cheerleading moves, doing homework, or just watching TV. As an 11-year-old, I feel helpless and panicky. Am I supposed to witness this much sadness and death at this age? When, if ever, will these childhood homes be a source of happy memories again? 26 years later, I visit my parents often, and I still challenge my dad to find records in the basement. I give him 2 minutes, and we smile.
I love how it went full circle. That was great. So you froze up on me. There you are. You're back. I was never an 11-year-old girl with the Girl Scouts, but I kind of had a sense of that, and the deaths just came out of nowhere. Yeah, still with you too, I'll bet. Yeah. You gonna give us the link now?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it. Richard, Wayne, Horton. There you are.
Yeah. Things to get done in Bogota, Colombia in 1976. The Easter season was winding down, and Bob and Elise had to get on the ball and get down to the US consulate and renew Elise's visa, so she would be all set to apply for a US permanent resident card known as a green card, which would allow her to get a lab job in the US and be a teacher's assistant at the university chemistry department. So she was dragging him along downtown through the echoey noise, and there was diesel exhaust smoke from the buses, which would belch clouds of it when they took off. There was also charcoal smoke from the food wagons along the sidewalk. Stepping excitedly around a dying beggar covered in sores, Bob pointed at a movie marquee and yelled, "Look, it's The Exorcist." One of those oops moments. He looked back at the beggar who said in Spanish, "Don't you have some place to go?" Later in the waiting room of the consulate, the people on the couches were shooting the bull. There was a sturdy, suntanned Japanese woman who had been farming in Brazil. Elise got to talking with a friendly and funny Taiwanese guy trying to start a chain of restaurants in California. She got tips from him about how to make fried food taste better, and she took his telephone number to get in touch with him back in the States. He said he hoped to live long enough to forget some things he had lived through. Though he looked like he was in his 30s, he was 50 something. He said back in the days of the ROC, the Republic of China, when the Generalissimo, Chiang Kai-shek, was still running things in Taiwan, he, the restaurant guy, had been doing his military service. Okay, and one time they'd put him on a firing squad detail. He and the other lost souls in the detail had stood around with their guns in the execution court, joking as they waited, a little gallows humor, as it were. Finally, a door creaked slowly open, and men brought the prisoner out, a woman who had belonged to a communist cell. She had her eyes tightly shut, and her legs didn't want to work. She'd pissed herself. They helped her along. She kept saying, no, no, no. She was crying. The soldier, who would years later become the restaurant guy, thought, is this for real? We're going to shoot that lady? She looks like my mother. They had told him and his buddies that one of the guns didn't have a bullet. Now in the consulate, he said, I hope the empty gun was mine, but maybe it wasn't. You know, I gotta live. I have a wife now and 2 kids. Maybe if I loved them very, very much, every moment of my life, I won't think so much about that one day.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Scenes were great. The assassination, the firing squad, and then the end was great. Was that a whole compacted story, or is it part of another thing?
It's part of a set of Bogota stories.
Okay.
Set in the 70s. I
You been
keep
to
changing and working on them.
Have you been to Bogota? Did you?
Yeah, in the 70s.
70s were a great year, great decade. How'd you get
Yeah.
there?
Pardon?
How did you get to Bogota?
With my ex-wife. We were staying at her parents' place.
Uh-huh. Well, you got a lot of stories in you. Or you should be home writing. You just go home and write. Finish those stories up.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Thanks. Ed Warzakowski. Where are you?
Thank you, Dick.
There you are. Go get him.
Okay. So this is a later chapter from the memoir that I've been writing for a long time, approaching the end, I think, co-writing it with a woman named Darlene. And at the beginning of this segment, she's 64 years old, looking back on turning 18, 11 years after she had been admitted to the former Belchertown State School. And she was still working and living at the institution in what was then called the blind unit. That summer was huge. I graduated from Chicopee Comprehensive High School in June, and on July 20th of 1974, I was officially released as a patient from the Massachusetts Department of Mental Retardation. I don't have my high school diploma because, like most of my records, I destroyed it. I spent 2 years studying reading, language, math, science, social studies, home ec, and phys ed. I also took business courses that taught office skills like typing and stenography. I actually got B's and C's in all those classes, but always in my mind was a big old special ed label after each letter grade. I know all this now because at 64 years old, I requested my transcript. Looking back, I'm surprised at how well I did. At the time, however, I felt cheated. I wasn't proud of having been a special ed student and didn't think much of my accomplishments. What remains of my record at Belchertown State School is an index card. It says, Ramo Darlene, first admission, October 17, 1963, discharged from placement, July 20th, 1974. Sister, Gail Ramo, number 4312. Aunt, Dorothy L. Ramo, number 3074. And at the bottom in red ink, it's typed, record destroyed. Absolutely no information to be given out that client was here. On the backside is a list of 10 absences. most of them for a day or two, the times that I ran away. That 3x5 card is the only existing record of nearly 11 years of my life. My actual file would have been fat with medical records, report cards, and pages of detailed comments from teachers and attendants about my behavior. But when I got out, I requested that my record be burned. I didn't see any reason to hang on to pieces of paper that would remind me of what happened during those years. And I didn't want other people to find out that Darlene Ramo had once been Belchertown patient number 23-4952. So a month before my 18th birthday, I was a high school graduate and a free woman. It was time for me to completely be on my own. Maureen, one of my coworkers, had an idea. You could check out where I live, Darlene. You might like it. What, have you got an apartment or something? No, I live in a commune. I didn't know what a commune was, but what the hell, I'd give it a try. About an hour away in Turner's Falls, a place went by a couple of names, Brotherhood of the Spirit and the Renaissance Community. Some of its members lived in a barn-like building while others roughed it in tents. There were rules posted like no alcohol, no drugs, no promiscuity, no violence, and no dogs. I wasn't sold on no alcohol or drugs, didn't know what promiscuity meant, and didn't have a dog, but I certainly could do without violence. It turned out that dozens of community members actually worked at the state school, bringing, quote, humanity to the residents there, people like me. They saw it as spiritual work that earned them good karma, whatever that was. We were their project. They all looked like a bunch of hippies to me, flower-powered types who raised vegetables, meditated, shared spiritualism and other deep thoughts. They also shared outhouses, men and women side by side. You could be taking a dump and some guy would walk in, sit down beside you and take one too. I was used to an open row of toilets at Belchertown, but that was just women. Even though I had lived in a communal situation for years, or maybe because I had, I was always on guard. I couldn't trust people, didn't want to get too comfortable. After a 2-week trial period, you were supposed to share your pay. Hell with that, I thought. I worked too hard to be forking my hard-earned cash over to someone else. People have been taking advantage of me for too long. And after the 2 weeks were over, I was back at the blind unit looking for an apartment.
Ed. So you're getting near the end on this?
I hope so.
Ah, yay.
Yeah.
It's such a different feeling to this book than the one before. Obviously,
Yeah.
people, but this, I think you really got her voice. I think you got it.
I don't know. It's been a challenge. I hope so. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for reading. Yeah.
Thank
Finn,
you.
you're next.
Okay. Let me just get it to come up here. Hang on. I have a rather odd poem. And I'm just going to admit it's a little silly, but it was recently accepted to Willowa Journal, so someone liked it. The title is Some Things You Just Know, like How to Train a Lion. The best way to train a lion is to look at his face and then close your eyes and then smile. This helps the lion know you do not fear him and you do not want to hurt him. It should be a ritual for dating. The lion knows you are kind, if you are, and you should be kind at all times. If you slip and are mean even once, you should never put your head in his mouth. Besides being kind, you should always wear the same outfit. It should have the color blue. Lions like blue, and it reminds them of how much they like the ocean. Always reach out and touch his ear. The left ear is best, and run your finger along the edge. He'll look at you, but don't look back. Pretend you don't see his glance. It is best to wear boots with heels. Lions are quite large, and you should be as big as you can be. The most important thing is to love. Your love lays down a path before you even enter the ring. Lions can pick up on that as if it's radio waves or something in the air. That's it.
That was beyond silly. That was beautiful. And timely. I mean, my first thought was we got Putin as the lion or something. I'm not really sure. And congratulations.
Thanks.
That's really excellent. Yay, more. Okay. Is that it for tonight? Okay, thanks. Thank you, Finn.
Thank
And
you.
last but not least, Stephanie Saffron.
Saffron. Thank you,
Very
dear.
I like
You said saffron.
you know, that's something good.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow. So I have been writing this memoir in all different ways for a couple of years, and I finally settled on one. And I'm going to read you a chapter from it. And before I do, I'm going to just say that my friendship with Sister Juana continues almost 30 years later. And in fact, I spoke to her by messenger video chat just this afternoon.
Stephanie, I'm going to
Chapter
interrupt.
10.
Stephanie, I'm going to
Yes.
interrupt real quick. You're coming in a little staticky. You might want to turn off your background.
Sure. Okay. So chapter 10, fall 1993. Is that better?
No, I didn't mean to turn you off. I just meant your background. I'm sorry. Please let us see
Oh,
you.
my background, my
We want to see you.
visual background.
So sorry. There you
Oh,
go.
no problem. Okay. All right. Chapter 10, fall 1993. If you asked Sister Juana what brought us together, without hesitation, she'd mention Dios, the Lord. Her unwavering religious faith is the lens through which Juana lives her life. She practices that faith every waking minute with daily prayers and fulfills the demands of her church as well as her community. Until a handful of years ago, she also taught at a parochial school 2 hours from her home. Ask the same question, I tell you, fate brought her into my life. I believe our first meeting at the Amherst Family Center was far from a random coincidence. We met for the first time that morning. As chair of the diversity committee of the Amherst Family Center at that time, I had the role of welcoming her and her cohorts of early childhood educators from El Salvador. They had come to the US under the auspices of a grant from a State Department affiliated program called International Training and Development, which happened to be located in Amherst, where I lived. On a 10-day tour of a variety of early childhood milieu in our area, these women set out to observe, compare, and apply whatever educational methods and approaches they witnessed once they returned to their early childhood work settings back in their tiny Central American homeland. During their morning visit, I'd used my fluency in Spanish to welcome Juana and her 9 colleagues upon their arrival and to translate the programming we'd created for their benefit. They reciprocated by performing a traditional folkloric dance in colorful skirts, I recall. I bid them goodbye with thanks and good cheer, never expecting to lay eyes on any of these 10 women again. Not more than an hour later, my 3-year-old daughter and I were headed back to our car after picking up my husband's pressed shirts at the local dry cleaners when I spotted Sister Juana and her cohorts crossing a parking lot in our direction. They were headed to the ITD office headquarters, located adjacent to the lot. When we stopped to greet each other with giggles at the coincidence, Sister Juana's eyes locked on mine, and a profound mutual connection was initiated. I wouldn't make sense of it until later, but in those moments, I felt a deep need to maintain a connection with her, despite all the barriers of geography and circumstances in our paths. Desperate not to lose this connection so fervently intuited, I asked Juana if we might correspond by mail once she returned to El Salvador. Beaming her trademark smile, she responded, "Claro que sí," and promptly asked me for some paper and a pen to write her address for me. That's how our correspondence began. At the time, exhausted by years of living a marital lie, yet paralyzed to break free of it, I was experiencing a constant state of anxiety and shame. With 3 children in my care, I struggled daily to disguise my ailing self-confidence and nagging self-reproach. However, this effort had once again sapped my psychological energy, and I succumbed to another bout of clinical depression, my second in 8 years. In retrospect, I understand that what her loving gaze offered me on that fateful day, unconditional worthiness, affection, and affirmation, represented a profound, ineffable, and life-sustaining gesture I desperately needed at the time. Sister Juana's intuition of and generous response to my cri de coeur set in motion a journey of self-discovery that has guided me ever since.
I'm sorry about your name, Stephanie. Boy, unconditional love can take you to the greatest spots in the world, can't it? She did that for you. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from my side of things. And now on with the show. Jacqueline.
Yeah, wow, thank you, everybody. I mean, as always, it's a thrill to listen to what everybody has written. And I'm very excited about that, what's happening at Forbes Library. And 2 people here, Jess and Ed, apparently in the show. So this is when we used to be in person. This is when we would take a break, we'd get a drink at the bar, we'd heavily tip the bartender, and we'd schmooze with each other and tell each other more about what we liked about what we heard. And hopefully we are soon going to return to that. But now that we're still on Zoom, but now we have Lynne Bertrand with us as our featured reader tonight. And Lynne, as most of you have probably already gleaned, lives in Western Massachusetts, and she works in the music business. Her most recent book is City of the Uncommon Thief. Her previous books were for young children. They include Granite Baby and One Day, 2 Dragons. So I look forward to hearing what Lynne is up to, learning more about her. And after you're done reading and talking with us, Lynne, we're going to have a little Q&A and have some questions stored up for you. So, yay,
Okay,
Lynne.
sounds good. Well, I did not realize, and you can blame it on months of complex family and business life, that everybody was going to read before me. So I was going to have to follow that mob of great writing. That I feel like you should warn people a little bit more that they have to come last in that field of brilliance. So thanks everyone for all that you just read. Amazing, like raw data from life. Really cool. I don't know what to do. I guess what I'll do, you guys, is tell you a little bit about this book, and then I'll read a little bit. I'm trying to find the shortest possible passage, so some of the longer ones might be what I would normally choose, but I just want to read something short and then we can talk. So the book is called City of the Uncommon Thief. There it is, probably backwards on your screen. I don't know, is it backwards? Yeah. Those are illustrations of animals. I don't know how well you can see that, but backwards, the animals still work. the the book was published by Dutton Books, which is out of Penguin Random House. It's a young adult fantasy. Hopefully a lot of people don't read young adult fantasies, particularly, well, you know, a group of serious adult writers. But I think this is a form of serious adult writing. So hopefully this will ring true to you, even though your interest may lie elsewhere. The book is about 3 17-year-olds who live on the roofs of a quarantined city. Inadvertently, I wrote about a city living in quarantine with a corrupt government. I don't know what your feelings are about politics, but I was sort of surprised to see the book have a certain amount of relevance to the actual world. I wrote it before the pandemic and before 5 years ago. So I didn't do that on purpose, but it is relevant. The 3 runners who live on the roofs of the city are the ones of thousands of 17-year-olds who do the chores of the city. Nobody comes out of the dark towers. Nobody knows why. Or if they do know why, they're not talking about it until later in the book, when people figure it out a little bit. They are one of them who's the narrator. His name is Odd Thebes. His cousin is Errol Thebes, and they are excited to be living a wild life. They get chosen to live on the roofs for reasons they don't really know. And they are altruists of a kind, but they are also, 17. So they live pretty big. There's a constant danger of falling off the roofs. They traverse lines kind of like zip lines. They also have the standard dangers of being 17. So I don't know exactly which chapter to read. I was thinking that I might read, I'm going to read I think the shortest one that I have, and then you guys can ask me questions if you want to, or maybe I can ask you questions about everything I just heard. So this one is 1, 2, 3 pages and about an inch on the 4th page. And this is the story. So we come into the story on page 164 of a terrible thing has happened, which is that Errol Thebes, who was being sort of heroic, is charged as a criminal and is dropped from the roofs. They use lines to drop people, so you don't know what his fate is at this point. But his cousin, Odd Thebes, is the narrator. And he is distraught for a bunch of different reasons. One is that he was always jealous of his cousin. He doesn't know quite what to make of the fact that his cousin is gone. He's also not really equipped to be alone because he always depended on his cousin for social life. And he's also trying to figure out whether he's worthy of the sort of expectations of a runner. And so he decides to go, his roof master assigns him to go look for a job because he's kind of restless. And the first place he goes is into one of the guilds to look for a job with the attar, who makes different scents. He makes jarred scents. Each of the 1,000 guilds makes a different beautiful, brilliant product. This one is the attar guild, and they make perfume of different kinds. I'm just going to jump in, read this, and if I have to stop and explain something, I will. So here we go. So this is Odd Thebes reading as narrator of the whole book. He says, I shined my headlamp into the chamber whose shelves were crammed with mortars and pestles, bins and bottles of 1,000 shapes and colors. A runner inside? Are you not aware this is a felony? Said the old man who sat cross-legged in the middle of the round room on a small round rug. He was long-boned and skinny, with a scrub of white hair and a short stubble on his long jaw. His eyes were closed. In one hand, he held a green bowl under his nose. His other hand fanned the air over it. I unfolded the papers I had brought. I'm here under orders, I said. You must be vastly important, he yawned, still fanning. I'm here to inquire about an apprenticeship, I said. I was sent by Merrick Thebes, my roof master. Are you the attar? Shine your light on yourself, he said, opening his eyes. Ah, yes, I see why he sent you. They all think a nose will do it. He took a deep whiff of the bowl. No, this is just not the same, merely a distant approximation. I shrugged. You're busy. I'll come back. You may stay, he said. Ask me all your questions. It's supposed to be the other way around, I said. Guild laws. He tossed the whole bowl into a bin in the wall. I couldn't tell if he was irritated with laws or with me or with the contents of the bowl. Well, he said, what is the scent you need? I'm not here to purchase anything. I said, I'm here to be judged. I judge that you are here. I put down my pack. This was going to take a while. He took the paper from me. Merrick Thebes says getting an early apprenticeship would help you, he said. You're not working, you're not studying, you can't seem to do anything but sleep. He looked up at me. Why not love? That's motivation. I laughed. What? He said, you don't think an old man would remember? I'm the one who wouldn't remember, I said. I can't even get a girl to run errands with me. Oh, I see, he said. How many revolutions? 17, I said, almost. He studied me now. Yeah, well, he said, 17 is good for love. And now I think that nose of yours would be good for this work. I put my hand up to my nose. It's not that big. I didn't say it was big. I said it was 17, he said. What's your real name? Odd Thebes, I said. Well, I doubt that, he said. And I'm really Kifi Attar. I blend the essences of every known animal, vegetable, and mineral from outside the way into formula. For example, tell me, what or whom do you desire? The streets, I said, without a thought. I have to stop and just say the streets are the desperate, dangerous, horrible place that his cousin has just been sent to. Plech, he said, bah, why do you want that? The formula for the streets, let me see, 8 parts human suffering, 3 parts turds, equal parts after that of blood, vomit, whiskey, blade rust, maw worms, pus, death, and also more death, maggot, slime, and the oil of fear. You want that? Aye, I said. The Attar got to his feet. He was agile. Odd Thebes, he said, give up on your cousin. Wait, how do you know about my cousin? I said. Everyone knows, but the streets will do you in. For you, I think we need something else, but I think theater, he said, a theater for the bard. And how is it you already know who I am? I said. Small city, big wall. He was circling the room, reaching into bins and bowls, shaking this and that, tipping a little into a fresh bowl, all the while calling out 2 parts each, oils of script parchment and iron gall ink. Get this down, 3 parts, the red velvet curtain, 2 parts, the leather seats with horsehair stuffing, 1 part, the rump farting on the chair, 1 part corn exploded in the fire, 5, the sweat of armpits in unwashed costumes, 2, grease paint, 2 wigs, 1, the oil from hemp rope and pulleys, let's say a drop each of the rushes underfoot, the smoke from the lights, the pulp in the playbill, and we cannot forget, he grinned at me and reached for a canister on the top shelf, a pinch of sulfur from Bian Pao, the fragrance of stage explosions. He set a carpet for me next to his on the floor. I sat with him with the new bowl in my hand, waving the Attar of the theater into my nose. Truth? I expected nothing, but the formula in that bowl took me back immediately to the first play I had ever seen in the Great Hall of Thebes. The Guilders had put on Homer's Odyssey, and I had loved it. Name the formula, Kiffy said. How can I? I don't even know it. No one does. It's new, he said. Today, give it a name. How about Act 1, I said. Act 1 indeed, he crossed his arms. All right, repeat the entire formula to me. He crossed his arms. I was surprised to find that I did remember all he had put into it, exactly what and how much. And then he said, what would I add? And I said, the smell of anticipation. Cypriol, I ventured, remembering the soap in Invitations from Al-Razi, a former scene. Cypriol would work, he said, but the oil of a newly cracked open book would be better. Not strictly theater, but every play is the opening of a tale. He retrieved a bottle and added a drop to my bowl. It's perfect, I said, fanning as he had shown me, genuinely impressed with his skill. Well done, he said. You're welcome to take the guild exams to apprentice at our Tar House. But he grew sober then. I smell a longing on you that will not be satisfied here. This tower contains the mere sillage of human life and not life itself. Yeah, nothing will help, I said, sniffing at my bowl again. A woman could help, he said. You'll forget everything. Women don't really like me, I said. Well, he said, tipping the contents of the bowl into miniature glass bottle he pulled from his pocket. Try this. Women love theater. If that doesn't work, come back and I'll bottle up some heroism for you. Right, I laughed, but he was serious. What's in that? It's the formula we discussed from the streets, plus 1 drop of the oil of valor. Where did you get that? I said. The antlers of a rutting red deer, he said, which incidentally is the exact same thing as the attar of stupidity. Shh, don't tell anyone. I turned to go. By the way, I said, what were you doing when I came in, that bowl that you threw away? I was trying again to perfect my formula for the attar of the roofs, he said. But then you arrived with your silk smelling hands and the rust scrapes on your leggings, your fresh sweat and the night air cold on your hair. He inhaled deeply, the clouds rhyming the lines in ice. I miss it still. I looked at him in a new way then. We were dwellers in the same high world. I wish you had saved the formula you made. I said, I would have bought it from you. It's too soon, he said. When you do come down off the roofs next year, I'll make it for you. All the runners want it when they go down into the guilds. It's the mainstay of my business. Meanwhile, go back to the sky. There is no attar, not even this one, who can improve upon the real thing. So could you, was I wasn't muted that whole time, I hope.
No, you were not muted at all.
Oh, good.
And Lynn, I am transfixed by this story.
Oh.
And I would love it if you would read a little bit from the very beginning. I can't imagine how you started this book. And by the way, I love YA fantasy.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, thank you. Do you want me to read the opening page? Well, so here's the thing. It has, it starts with an invocation by the muse. I don't know. It sort of makes more sense for me to start one page in with the same narrator. I don't know.
Sure,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me just start there and I'll go 2 paragraphs in and stop. But this is Odd Thieves again. I actually, you know what? Let me just start from the beginning. This is actually somebody else who opens and closes the book. Her name is Terpsichore, and you might recognize her as one of the 9 muses. But she's not really that. She came to a costume party dressed as that, and everybody calls her that for the rest of the book. So, but the invocation of the muse begins like this, and it's 1 page, 2 pages. I'll read fast. I don't dream.
I love it.
Okay. I don't dream, never have. I hardly sleep. Lately, I bide the nights by choosing names for each ship in a vast fleet. The names come to me from what sky I can see through a square cut in the roof of my tent. Taygete, Yeji, Bellatrix, Al-Uqta. I was at work on this list long after Noctis on the 13th of Ragfir, with a quill in hand and my headlamp dimly lit. An east wind harassed the tower roofs and strained the tent flaps and tethers. One of the bog pot doors must have pulled off its hinge and was banging against the jamb. Odd Thebes lay next to me, lost in sleep. What was that? I said. What was what? He mumbled into his pillow. Someone just called for you. 'Tis not. He rolled away from me. Who would be out in this larceny wind? No one. I pulled wools and a tunic from the heap of our clothes and slipped out onto the roof. The bucket fires were cold and the iron tower was slick with ice underfoot. I stood at the edge. A minute passed before someone called again the bard's name. Odd Thebes. I shone my lamp into the abyss. 20 feet out and 10 down, on the plank between my guild tower Lascaux and our neighbor Gallia, sat a runner so ragged I barely knew him. The bard ignores me and sends a mere muse, he called, squinting into my light through a billow of steam. I had to wipe my hands of sudden sweat, for I had never seen a plank so deeply bowed as this one was, certainly not under the weight of one runner. The outlaw returns, I called back. A gust of wind dispelled the steam, and now I could see that the weight bearing down on the plank was not merely the runner's, but also that of the colossal beast upon which he sat. What is that? I said. The runner studied the animal beneath him as though he was as surprised as I was to find it there. It was a hoofed creature, easily the weight of 7 guilders, umber furred and broad in the chest, with a pair of branches jutting from the sides of its head, and more of that steam huffing from velvet nostrils. Sorry about the puppy. That, he said, is another. He was struggling. Another. The mere emphasis on the word caused the plank to tremble. In one hand, he held a pair of sticks, tamping rods or lapidary files, I thought, or maybe marlin spikes. With the other hand, he removed a flask from his pocket, uncorked it with his teeth, and spit the cork into the abyss. Tell me something, he said, taking an unsteady swig. Given the choice, would you rather be Sisyphus or Theseus? It's the middle of the night, I said. Would you prefer to drown in the hands of a fiend or be devoured alive? That depends, I said. Are we out of arsenic? I'm asking a real question. What would you do if you were me, the Irfalaf son of a high-ranking guild master in a city quarantined by fear? I would think twice before I filled my head with whiskey over a mile-high abyss, I said, on the back of a sheep on an ice-rimed plank, and insulted the only help within earshot. It's a stag, he said. Something moved at the edge of my lamplight. The runner and I both turned to look. A skin and bones foundling crouched at the edge of Gallia. The runner flinched and blurted something in his ancient guild tongue, and to my horror, hurled the sticks at the foundling. He may as well have dropped a whole new stag on that stressed plank. The cedar split with a sickening crack. The stag scrambled for purchase in a spray of splinters and ice, but slid backwards with the runner gripping its fur. They fell into the abyss. Then, that foundling leapt out onto what remained of the plank and ran toward me. Did it not see the splintered end, the nothing air? It dove straight down, grasping at the darkness. From inside my tent, the bard called out, "What was that?" Then came a shift in the column of air between the towers, and I stepped back from the edge for what came next. This isn't my tale, and I won't be accused of thieving it from the bard, but as I have a script of my own, I will tell this bit more. I kept a wad of that umber fur and a feather too. I'm sure there are cities in the world beyond our wall where everyday guilders find such relics caught on a fence or blowing about in the street and can't even bother to pick them up, common as the beasts are who wear them. But here, in towers devoid of animals of any kind, fur and feathers are the Irfalaf, all that remains. I keep them in my talon sack. For similar reasons, I name a fleet of ships I do not own to sail on oceans I have never seen. Okay, that's it.
Wow, Lynn.
That's
Wow.
so long.
No, you're thinking that we're not interested in hearing you. We are totally interested in hearing you. But I think you might need to stop a little bit and rest, and we'll ask you some questions. I know I
Okay.
have some.
Okay,
So
Sorry.
this is like master world building. And your dog was doing a little photo bombing behind you when you were reading.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
She's busy. This is Beatrice.
Beatrice. So how did this book come to you? Have you written something of this magnitude before?
No, I hadn't. And actually this began as a 32-page picture book about some waifs, some city urchins living on the roofs and seeing some animals who were knitted come alive. It is no longer that, but that was the beginning of it. And the editor I was working with on another book wrote to me and said, "This is interesting, but it's not a picture book. I can feel it's a lot bigger than this." So I put it away because I didn't have time to work on anything long at that time, but brought it up years later and worked on it.
Yep, you make it sound so simple.
Yeah. Well, I usually work in the background, so hearing my own voice it's not my favorite thing. So
What do you mean you work in the background usually?
well, I manage bands, so usually I'm the one who makes sure that they get a lot of stage time and have a lot of fun on the road, and I'm usually the one wearing black and working backstage. So
Wow, you might have to get more used to being in the highlight, I think. Yeah. Okay, but So other people, do you have questions? Anything that you want to comment on or ask David?
Hi, Lynn. It's just wonderful hearing your voice. I'm so proud to have worked with you way back in the day. I've always loved your writing. I just wonder, like, now when you read something like this, like, how does it feel? Like, it's been a while since you wrote it. It feels so kind of natural to read it now. But how does it feel, like all these words that you came up with like way back when, and now they just make so much sense and they just sound so great to us? But what is it like for you to be doing that?
Great question. David was my editor at a magazine for, I think, more than one piece, but some very, very long pieces that I wrote. So we've had a lot of time together. Great editor. It's a great question. I feel like I'm home. You know, these are my people. I feel home in their presence. I miss them. You probably heard me stop. I started to cry a little bit because I miss that Terpsichore is one of my favorite characters ever, and I miss her kick-ass attitude about things. So yeah, home. It was also nice to hear writing that took so long. And every once in a while, there's a turn of phrase where I think, oh yeah, that was a lot of work, but it came out all right. You know, so yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. It's fascinating. It's so different than anything that I would write. And I love knowing a little bit about how it occurred to you. And I'd like to hear about, you just referred to how long it took. And I would just like to hear a little bit about that process.
Well, good question. It was, I think the reason it took a long time is I had never done anything like that before. So it feels like if somebody said, can you traverse the Himalayas, I think it had a sort of similar feeling. I sort of had to find the map and the ship and it just took a lot of time to figure out how to write anything, never mind anything that long. It was probably 10 years in the works. Yeah. But it was not necessarily 10 straight years. It was a year of sort of guessing where the story was going to go, trying to follow it. There are probably, it was 500 pages when I first handed it in. It was probably another 500 pages of stuff I didn't include because I was just trying to find my way. Yeah. Writing scenes after scenes. Yeah, like that.
Yes.
Well, first of all, that was just so brilliant. It was, I love the wordplay and I love those formulas, the complexity and the simplicity. You made a very alien, strange culture feel very knowable and relatable. So, I mean, it was just wonderful. In all of that time, did you stay committed to this novel? Did you stay I don't know, invested? Did you burn out at any point with your novel, and what sort of got you through that?
Yeah, I definitely did burn out on really good question. I don't know if you guys experience this, but sometimes I listen to my own writing and I think, oh God, this is horrifying. I never want anyone to see that. And then there were days when I thought, okay, that's pretty good. And it depended on factors that were out of my control and also unreliable in a bunch of other ways, how I would feel about it. And it was just a matter of holding steady and keeping on going, even when I thought it sounded stupid, actually. I think John Irving, the novelist, said once that he read early drafts of his stuff and they sounded juvenile to him. And I remember thinking, I mean, I have actually a great deal of respect for young writers, so I wouldn't describe it exactly that way, but I know what he meant by it, which is naive, inexperienced, something you really wouldn't want to see over and over again with your name on it. And so I had to kind of get through all that and feel a little bit confident. Sometimes I just had to fake it and fake confidence. Sometimes I would go in and pretend I was somebody else. And a writer I love, I would just go in and I'm going to go in today and pretend I'm Gabriel Garcia Marquez and just see what happens. Or, there's about 15 different writers. Madeline Miller, I'm just going to go pretend I'm Madeline Miller today and see what she would write. And obviously I'm not them, so I wasn't writing their prose, but I was trying to be confident. And that was my method.
So great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What a great idea that is. I've never heard anyone say that before. When
I have a very funny story on this subject. Can I just tell that to you? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay. I used to work at a newspaper. I used to work at the Gazette back in the day, 100 years ago when I was a cub reporter. They assigned me to cover a football game. I didn't know anything about football at all. I had no interest in it. And they sent me down to report it. Well, I was reading Tom Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities at the time. And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'll make them regret ever asking me to do this. So I wrote it in the style of Tom Wolfe. And I don't know if you guys know his stuff, but it's a real pop. It's like Andy Warhol on the page. And I just let it rip. I was talking about the shape and form of the players, and instead of the actual game, one of the teams was getting their tail, they were getting massacred is what was happening. And I wrote about that. And I got back to the office on Monday morning, and the sports editor called me over and he said, "This is one of the best pieces of writing I've ever seen." And I said, "Well, that's ridiculous because I don't know what I'm doing." He said, "It would have been great if you included the score on this." And my other editor called me over and he said, "I just have one question for you. Have you ever heard of a guy named Tom Wolfe?" It was pretty funny. So that goes down as a moment where I was really trying to be somebody else because I couldn't stand the writer I was having to be. So it's funny.
Thank you. Eddie, yeah, Ed.
Lynn, I'm first of all, I'm impressed that you were Tom Wolfe and successful at it. I'm also impressed at the how vested you are in the characters, or how any fiction writer is, so much so that you get emotional when you're reading it even now. And I'm wondering if you can talk about a little bit about how that happened, how it develops.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I didn't expect it. And I guess you guys have all been, I'm guessing, writing long enough to know this feeling of a certain skepticism when you hear fiction writers say that the book got away from them or the characters did, well, that happened. And so I would say I was about maybe a year in to this, where I was writing characters who I thought I liked by sort of assembling. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, you sort of assemble character traits and you can kind of imagine people's strengths and their weaknesses. So I had sort of a paper doll version of each character. And suddenly, I don't know what happened, but there was one day where the characters started to determine the plot in a different way. I kind of knew that I went from writing about them to running after them with a reporter's notebook to see what they were going to do next. And I can't really explain that. And it's not easy to concoct again. I'm working on the next book and having that same time where I'm trying to invent something. Hang on. Shut the door from nothing. And so it went from paper dolls to real characters to people I miss now. And I don't really understand the sort of mystical process of that, but it happened when there was enough character and enough plot to actually feel that they were actors on a stage, maybe, instead of people I was inventing, and they had their own opinions of what would happen. And I could tell you, if you said, what would Errol do about this? Or what would Jamila do about that? I could tell you now with confidence. And I go to that world as an escape. I love to be with these people, and I go there when I'm bored or tired or whatever. And so I really miss, sorry, there's a lot of puppy action over here. I miss working on their story. Actually, it was really hard to close the book on that.
It's a magical process. As someone who is a nonfiction writer, I'm I don't understand how that happens, but I'm impressed that it does. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I felt it in your index card, that I felt like, oh, that's the beginning. I mean, imagine if that was fiction. I think the details of a story have some of the DNA of the story in it. If you were writing that piece as fiction that you read, I feel like that would be like when you put that index card down and the number of the, this sort of student number, suddenly that person is real. It's almost like that magic. I think that detail made that come alive in a way that if you were working on fiction, that might have been your moment.
Thank you. Give me something to think about. Thanks.
Yeah.
Finn, you had a question.
Oh, I just wanted to say, oh my God, so fabulous. But listening to the read of it, I really was struck by the scenes. And so the part that you're describing, that magic part where the characters kind of run away, the person listening to that story totally is pulled along by not only the incredible dialogue, but I actually wrote one piece down, like who would be out in this larceny wind? There's such a unique combination of movement and scenes and the details of the world building, and then this extraordinary tossed away kind of remarks. It's just unbelievably great, and we all want a copy, and we all want you to live upstairs from us.
Well, that's great because I need a place to go right now. No, I felt like we had I don't mean to, just as an aside, I felt like there was a sort of similarity with your lion, and that I felt a sort of familiar relationship with your poetry. When I was hearing that, I thought, oh, that's familiar. I feel I could live in that poem. It was beautiful. Yeah, the play of words. I don't know. It takes a certain amount of courage to get out there and try words like larceny wind. You have to find some editor who trusts that you know what you're doing.
Thank you. Darlene, see you have your hand up.
Hi, I was just wondering, what is your daily writing practice like? Do you have a routine that you do every day? And how is it that you handle any mental blocks, or writing blocks?
Yeah, I wish it was normal and structured. I find that night. So Mark is going to laugh. I can't see his picture, but he asked me the same question and I fumbled. I would say there's two parts. One is going from nothing on the page to a full page, which is the heavy lifting, in my opinion. The fun part is going from a full page to tightening it and adding details and humor and twisting the plot or finding things that you buried yourself in the plot. To go from 0 to a full page is exhausting. I can do a couple hours of that, but I like night for that work because it's infinite. In the morning, I feel like somebody's going to call, or there's going to be some meeting or a to-do list or whatever, and I can't work with that. It drives me nuts. So I start working, if I'm writing from an empty page, I work at night and just allow myself to be completely exhausted the next day by whatever I did at night. So maybe an hour or two, sometimes 2 or 3, and then I'm done because I can't write 8 straight hours with a blank page. And then if I'm working on much longer, like if I'm, trying to improve something, I can work longer, 5 to 8 hours if I had to, if there's a deadline.
The reason why I ask is because how many pages did you say your book was?
Well, the book is probably, I don't know, 300 and something, but the manuscript was 500. I'm just trying to see.
Wow.
380 pages in the book, so five
Mhm.
something in the manuscript. Yeah. A
Do-
lot of
did you-
writer's block. I'm not writer's
Yeah,
block, but moments where I didn't like the writing or whatever, a lot of that.
And what did you do to get yourself out of that?
Different things. It's one thing is I pretend I'm somebody else, somebody I like, somebody's confidence. One thing I do is I just trust that. So one way I've heard writing described is there's this big thread that comes down and you just keep pulling it and pulling it and winding it and winding it. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll just write down every idea that I have until one of them feels hot and feels interesting. And I don't mind, I let myself be sort of, if you can just forgive the expression, because I probably need to examine this in myself, but I let it be stupid if it has to be stupid. I let myself say things that don't make sense. I kind of do like refrigerator magnets. I just throw a bunch of ideas up and try everything that's sort of extreme. And then until one line makes me feel like, oh, that's the thread. I can follow that. I can pull that. There's more there, that kind of thing. I don't know. What about you?
Thank you.
Yeah, just
Well,
curious. What do you do?
I'm just, I would say I'm a emerging writer. And I find that it's hard for me to write at night because it gets to a point where I'm just extremely exhausted. I find that I'm a better writer during the day, in the morning hours when I wake up. But I find that I have to be inspired by things, like it could be memories, images, something that's happened in my day, a conversation. And I've been writing quite a bit. I was going to share today, but as you noticed, I have my granddaughter with me, and so I've been paying attention to her. I'll share it next time though, but I appreciate your tips. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And Jendi, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, Lynn. Thanks. It's really cool to hear you read and just discover this other side of you. I only know Lynn from church, so it's like a whole other life. This book sounds really very exciting. I've had the same experience as you of my characters carrying away the action and just following them around. It really is magical, finding that balance between control and letting go.
Yeah.
My question is about world building. Did you start out making up the rules of this world and then put the characters in it? Did the characters and their situation, their emotional situation kind of lead to the world building? And what models did you use as someone who's new to writing a fantasy novel for how to, what kind of models did you look to develop the rules of your world, which sounds really inventive and interesting to me?
Thanks, Jendi. Yeah, so the question, a great one, implies a sort of orderliness to this that I don't know if I can really confess to having. I'm more of a mess. I kind of, I had a bunch of ideas. It was like a deck of cards, and I had some players and I had some scenes and I had the beginning of plot. And so then I tried to put a bunch of them all on the page or on the stage, like a bunch of actors, and acting it out. And then I realized that some things needed to really grow. So what began as a low-lying sort of Soviet bloc city got taller, everything grew into sort of mile high, everything. I went to all kinds of extremes. And then if a scene happened, I realized I needed, like if say there was a dance, which there's a big party, I needed food and I needed a stage and I needed costumes and I need everybody. So then I invented all that stuff around it. And then language was a big part of it. There's a lot of different languages in the city, and the narrator's a translator. So I was inventing languages. It was I kind of let myself just enjoy the process rather than feel some sort of deadline. And so it was a little bit like all the different pieces would kind of come together it wasn't like I had characters and then I brought plot and then I brought the world. They kind of all built at the same time in a way. A little bit messy.
Yeah, I'm a very messy process writer myself, so
Okay.
I relate. Did you ever reach a point where you stopped and said, I need to make the rules of this world consistent, like in the revision process? You know, how did you pull back after? I love the let it be stupid. That's such a wonderful freeing mantra. But when in the revision process, what was your framework, I guess, mentally for looking at this and saying, okay, I've got to reconcile all these features of this world so it makes internal sense?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, hold on. Hey, no, I did eventually have to make a map and a calendar, and I had to actually go back over the whole book and glue myself to everything because there were 1,000 guilds, and the novel takes place over the course of, well, it's really about 6 months. Hold on. But it was, wait, you guys, hold on one second. Let me throw a puppy out.
Oh, the puppy's so great. More puppy.
It's going wild.
Hey, puppy.
Go on. Okay, I'm back. Let's see if I can. So then I really had to impose order and kind of know that it was going to be a train wreck if I didn't make maps and calendars and deal with the facts of the thing. I also listed all the guilds that I had written in the book, and I listed all the floors of the main tower. You know, in other words, then I had to like get myself organized.
Right.
So it's actually, I didn't really need that level of order until the book sold, and then I really had to kind of clean up my act.
Right.
Yeah.
Why not? Throw it all down first and then get rid of the extraneous stuff later, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds great. I'm really looking forward to reading it. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, fair warning, everyone. And I think Mark would agree with this. It's very dark. Like I read you a couple of the parts that were lightness and you know, it goes to a really pretty dark place. So if you're feeling the darkness of a pandemic and war in the Ukraine and sadness, you know, it's not a easy read, I would say.
Thank you.
It
And-
resolves, but it's not easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and Janice, you've been waiting. You have your hand up. You're muted still, Janice.
There we go. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Janice.
Have you thought about doing this as an audiobook? Because I love your voice reading the book.
Thanks. It might be because we're friends, Janice. I don't know. I don't know if everyone would agree with that. Yeah, the book, I haven't thought of it. A couple of people have said that though. I don't know. Alan Kelly, who's an actor in New York, did the Audible version of it. He's pretty great, but a couple of people have said that they wanted me to do it. I don't know. I don't come out, you know me. I hide behind the scenes generally. So thank you though. It means a lot.
And David, you had a question.
Well, just one other thing. When we worked together, and we worked for, you know, a pretty big name national magazine, and
Yeah.
your writing was nonfiction. It was, you know, you were such a great nonfiction writer, you know, so detailed. And I'm just wondering how that sort of translated along the way to you being a fiction writer now, because you must have brought a lot of those. I mean, you were such a natural, but that's a big difference writing, you know, like that to doing a novel like this one.
Yeah.
That makes
Well,
sense.
I haven't thought about that in a long time. But it's a good question. I think the main, hang on, I'm really having trouble managing this. Let me just, hey, come on, you guys. I don't know if you can see this, but they have toilet paper in my office, actually, literally. Here, go. There. It's an old house and I'm trying to get the door to work. Did you hear that? Did that sound final? I think actually that in many ways, journalism or magazine writing was really helpful because you have to hook a reader, and nobody's going to pay you if you can't get people to read through your article. So I knew it's sort of like I got to work things out on a stage. And so I knew things had to be kind of entertaining. And I think I'm going to be working at that my whole life. I don't think I perfected it in City of the Uncommon Thief. I love this book, and I'm very proud of it, but I also feel like I have a lot to learn. So I think that's one thing. I also think that when we were talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez before, some of the magic realists applied journalism to their way of describing a magic, a situation that was sort of off the known maps. And they used that as their technique for making something that was sort of slightly, magic or fantastic, really feel like they were just talking about life on the farm, and I think that was a skill that I learned while actually doing journalism. So, I think I applied some of that to the book actually. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm like having to manage a wild bronco here off to the side. Does that make sense, David?
Yeah, it does. But it seems like you made such a seamless transition from nonfiction to fiction. And that I love that. I mean, I don't know too many writers who have done that as well as you have.
Well, thanks. Thanks.
Well, Lynn, we have really peppered you with more questions than any other writer we have had in years.
Wow.
But I know. Is there any one last question or comment for Lynn before we wrap it up? Lynn, this has been fantastic. And where can we get your book?
Well, Broadside has it if you're actually in Western Mass. It also is at other bookstores. It's, Penguin does a pretty good job of distributing, so it's out there. If you really can't find it, people can get in touch with me through you, and I have copies of it, but I know I'd love to see people go to Broadside for it. I love them. They've been very kind to me. So.
And it appears that we do have one more question from Jess.
Okay.
Yeah, so on that note, I just wanted to know how we could get like a personally signed copy mailed to us. We pay the shipping, but just due to health circumstances, I'm not like frolicking around Broadside a lot lately. So could you maybe let us know how we could do that with you?
Of course. Well, Jess, I believe you probably have my email.
Yeah, but yeah. I think other people wanted to know too.
So when you want us, for one thing, Jess, I'll give you anything, including my first and second born, if you need them. I can't believe I just said that on a recorded.
Lynn, we love you so much.
Well, I feel the same, obviously. But if you need me, so let's see. Do you want me to just give you my email? Because what I do is I sign the book, but I also stamp it with a really cool tattoo stamp that is from the guilds. It's a crow with a crossed pair of sticks it's a symbol that's in the book.
Would you like to put it in the chat, Lynn?
Yeah, my email, I guess that's the way to do it. You can also, if
Lynn, if you're trying to keep your email private, we can work something out. If you would, when I send it, how about you and Jacqueline talk afterwards, and I can include contact information that you're comfortable with in the chat when I mail that out to everybody.
That sounds great. I can also, I also go into Broadside and sign books specifically for certain people. So that's actually a really good connection. And I know they have at least one copy because I was in there yesterday getting something else and I saw it. So that would be great, Beth. The other great thing about that is that if it's in my email, sometimes it gets buried under banned business. So I just don't want to not see something somebody sends over. So
excellent.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you were just totally awesome, Lynn. Like amazing.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks,
So-
everybody. It was so lovely to hear your work. I feel inspired. I have to go write tonight and I was not feeling inspired and now I am. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. This has really been terrific. Thank you so much. And oh, those are clapping hands. Those are clapping. I see.
All right, back at you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jacqueline. Beth,
You're
Mark,
so
thanks,
welcome.
everyone. We'll see you
And
soon.
next month, our featured readers, we have in for a special treat next month because it is Karen Schofield, a former poet laureate of Northampton, with Rio Santos, who is our very first youth poet laureate. And those two are teaming up to do a dynamic duo for us. So it'll be a different kind of featured reader situation for us next month. I think it'll be great. So any quick announcements about anything happening? Anybody wants to say anything about Rick?
If anybody lives in the Springfield area, starting in April, the third Thursday of the month, arranged with the Springfield, the Longmeadow Adult, it's called the Adult Center. It's a senior center, but they just like to say Adult Center. On April 21st, Michael Goldman is going to be there to read about, he's had a hell of a year, to read about his stuff and take some questions from the audience. Kind of like this, but just not an open mic night, but for one person invited. And then I hope we're going to try it for 4 months and see how many people we draw and decide to go on from there. But they're very happy about this and I expect it'll work. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, I think that is a wrap. Thank you all for reading and being here and hope to see you next month.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline and Rick and Beth and Lynn.
Mhm.
Bye, everybody.